The Buffalo Bills, Old Yeller, the Aaron Rodgers era of the Jets, 40-14 in Orchard Park to firmly take the second seed in the AFC for the playoffs and continue the Josh Allen MVP conversation. I'm going to recap this entire game for you. Let's go.
To my friend Nate and all the listeners of this podcast, no one circles the wagons than Nate Escape. Circle the wagons, Buffalo.
What is up, Bills Mafia? Welcome to another episode of Circling the Wagons, a Buffalo fan base Bills Mafia podcast. I am your host, Nate, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to discuss the Buffalo Bills 40-14 win against the Jets yesterday. We're going to go over our thoughts on the game, stats of the game, sweet, sassy, molassy plays of the game, our wall of fame and wall of shame, and of course, some help from our followers on Twitter after each and every game. I mention the Buffalo Bills winning and losing, and I say, what is your thoughts on the game? What are some hot takes from that game? And social media never fails us. So let's get right into it. I am doing this solo without my co-hosts, John and Mike. So I have this open to my Twitter Spaces. If anyone is interested in filling in, giving some thoughts on yesterday's game, giving some thoughts on the victory, the second seed in the AFC, whether it's who do you want to play in the wild card round of the playoffs? Who do you want to play between the Bengals, the Dolphins, or the Broncos? Or if you want to talk about the Josh Allen MVP conversation, we're going to hit on all of those items today. So first and foremost, want to get into the Jets game. Recap that one real quick. Buffalo Bills absolutely dominating the New York Jets. The Aaron Rodgers era in New Jersey is over. Man, it's funny. I saw a meme that showed the highlights of the Aaron Rodgers era for the Jets, and it was basically just him running out on his first game last season before he went out with that Achilles injury. So there hasn't been much to say. I kind of wish they re-sign him. I know they won't, but man, has there ever been a quarterback that came to a new club like this and just destroyed it from the ground up? I mean, I'm thinking Deshaun Watson is the only other one that comes to mind so quickly. It just, man, such high hopes for both franchises that were, pretty good. They were solid. I mean, under Robert Saleh, the Jets were pretty solid. Not great, but everyone was like, well, they have a good running back. They have good wide receivers. All they need is a quarterback. And they got one, just not the right one. So I wasn't nervous going into it because I think the part of me that thought that the Bills were going to head into this looking to make Josh the MVP in the NFL helped. It was a game at home. It's hard to tell if the Jets really gave up on the season yet or not. I mean, they're still professional athletes. They don't like the Bills. This is a divisional game. How badly do they want it? And I think they did want it for the first half until it got out of hand, until about 3 scores. I think they were done, and I think they kind of mailed it in, which I don't blame them. I would be doing the same thing, right? 1, 2, 3 Cancun, right? I think we're all like that over the holidays. When you have to work over the holidays, I don't know how you guys are, but in my office, it's very, very few people. I actually get more work done, but at the same time, I'm like, it's tough to work that hard, man. It's tough to work really hard when, nobody else is working. So I kind of feel for the Jets there. But yeah, great game by the Buffalo Bills, offensively, defensively, even a little bit on special teams. Going to go right into stats of the game because I know Josh Allen sat out the fourth quarter so he couldn't pad his stats even further. But Josh Allen was 16 for 27, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He also had that rushing touchdown on the day, so 3 total touchdowns, 17 yards rushing. James Cook, leading rusher for the Buffalo Bills, 15 carries, 53 yards, 1 touchdown. Also had, Ty Johnson was up there, 4 carries for 16 yards. Tyrell Shavers, the leading receiver for the Buffalo Bills. One of my sweet, sassy, molassy plays of the game. I haven't decided if I'm going to make it the sweet, sassy, molassy play of the game or if it's just going to be an honorable mention. But that was an amazing catch and throw by Tyrell Shavers. Again, against the Jets second stringers, sure. but a great play for a guy who's sitting firmly on the practice squad and got called up, made the most of it. And it's a guy that, oddly enough, you don't really hear a whole lot about outside of training camp. And when you do hear about these guys in training camp that come out of nowhere, a lot of the time they don't really end up doing anything. They don't really end up going anywhere with the team. And I think about Duke Williams. I think about Des Lewis. Think about Derrick Rogers a few years ago. And by a few years ago, I mean like a decade ago. Guys just didn't end up seeming to make a difference. But Tyrell Shavers had a big play. Happy for him. You could see the happiness on Josh Allen's face when he came to the sidelines. It was a cool moment. It's a cool moment. This team is really cool. They rally around the guys that don't get a lot of starts or get a lot of playing time like that. Remember when Christian Wade scored his touchdown just a few years ago in the preseason? How cool that was for the Buffalo Bills. Again, cool culture, cool team, easy to root for, right? Next leading receiver was Amari Cooper, 3 receptions on 3 targets for 56 yards, 1 touchdown, had that amazing Moss-like touchdown in the end zone. Mac Hollins, 2 receptions for 2 targets, 3 yards. Keon Coleman, 3 receptions on 7 targets for 1 touchdown, 27 yards. He had a couple of drops, but he made up for it with some really nice catches. Khalil Shakir, 3 receptions on 6 targets for 25 yards, and Dalton Kincaid, 2 receptions on 2 targets for 24 yards. On the Jets side of the ball, we're looking at Aaron Rodgers, 12 for 18, 112 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Tyrod Taylor, 11 for 14, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Did as much as you can say about Tyrod Taylor. And by the way, I'm glad that when Tyrod went in, he got a standing ovation from the Buffalo Bills crowd, which was cool. Honestly, I forgot that he was on the Jets. So that was surprising to me, but it was cool to see that. That was a perfect example of how different social media is compared to what the actual fan base is like. Like I saw something on Ravens Twitter saying, the Bills are racist or something to that extent where, they were likening Lamar Jackson winning the MVP to that scene in 42 where Robinson was booed when he took the field for the first time. And obviously a lot of racial slurs and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't think so. The Bills Mafia that I talk to over social media and in real life, they like Lamar Jackson a lot. They just want Josh Allen to win, understandably so. But again, what you see in social media is not real life all the time, right? So that's a perfect example. I'm glad that Tyrod Taylor got cheered. Again, respect Tyrod Taylor. Appreciate what he did. Again, I'm glad he's gone though. But at the time he was here, he did a pretty good job and he tried his best, man. He was a beast up there. So that was for Tyrod Taylor out there, 11 for 14, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interception. He was able to score 2 more touchdowns than Aaron Rodgers. Breece Hall, 10 carries for 45 yards. Breece Hall was someone I was worried about a little bit. He does kill the Bills when it's a close game. The Bills just never kept it a close game, so he couldn't really wreck it like he normally does or when he has a chance to. Garrett Wilson, 7 receptions on 8 targets for 1 touchdown. Tyler Conklin, 8 receptions on 8 targets for 1 touchdown. Devontae Adams, 5 receptions on 8 targets for 0 touchdowns. So those were stats of the game. And all right, so my guy, Big Mike, is looking to come in. If you've ever listened to a Twitter Spaces before, Big Mike has come in before, and now he's on the podcast. What's going on, brother?
Oh, it's the same old Victory Monday.
Oh, yeah.
I know normally I come on here and I kind of harp on a lot of the things that I wouldn't necessarily say negative, but I would say things that we either need to pay attention to or maybe find ways to improve upon. But to be honest with you, there's not a lot I can say about this game in that respect. I want to stay more on the positive side. We as Bills Mafia are starting to get spoiled and all this stuff. And, you just come to work on Monday, or most of us hopefully have been off still, but you got that giant smile on your face, and there's not a whole lot that you can do besides enjoy. I think really the only thing that I want to really touch on is you asked for hot takes, and I think my hot take is going to be that I think, in my opinion, I think the starters should play at least the whole first half next week. But I think realistically, I understand it'll probably just maybe be like 1 or 2 possessions or whatever. And then, everybody just kind of lick their wounds and get out of the end of the season, as healthy as possible. But I really like what you touched on Tyrell Shavers. That kid just grabbed the ball and just did everything he could. He was like, this is my chance, I'm gone. And he was literally gone. So that's pretty much all I got. Bills, man, go Bills.
Hey, real quick, Big Mike, have you thought about which team you do or do not want to face in the wild card round of the playoffs? There's 3 teams vying for it. It's most likely going to be Denver, but in the events that some things change, go one way or another, it could be Cincinnati, it could be Miami. I have positives and negatives for each one, but I was curious if there's one that stuck out to you that you liked more or liked less than the others.
Pulling up right now the actual games for next week, the matchups. You said the Broncos are going to be playing. They're going to be playing the Chiefs. I think there's a good possibility that the Broncos actually win that game, due to the fact that you would think that if they wouldn't be in the 1 seed, people are just going to be sitting all over the place on that game. So there's a chance that the Broncos do that. The other game that I'm more looking at is the Bengals are playing against the Steelers. Those games, just like the Steelers and the Ravens, the Bengals and the Steelers, those three teams always play each other ridiculously tough. So those 2 teams are fighting to get in. I think those 2 are going to bang each other up, and then we're just going to get probably the weaker of the 2 on that after the game itself. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to bang each other up, and that's what I mean by the weaker of the 2. They're going to be bruised and battered, and I guess fight and claw their way into the playoffs. In all honesty, I think I'm going to say I would rather play in order to just make sure we get to the next round. I'd say the Bengals. I don't know. Let me hear what you have to say about each one.
So each one has its positives and negatives, right? The worry with the Broncos, they have a good defense, but at the same time, they have a rookie quarterback. Them coming cross country to Orchard Park, I like the idea of that. I think Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich have a good record against rookie quarterbacks. Usually, Drake May is a little bit of an outlier from the week before, but usually they do well against these guys. Dolphins, I like. Obviously, the Bills beat them. They barely beat them the second time with that 61-yard Tyler Bass walk-off field goal. But at the same time, the thing that scares me about playing a divisional opponent 3 times is they know you so well, and they're just happy to be there, man. Like, they're excited. They're almost playing like they have nothing to lose, right?
So my question about the Dolphins is, they sat Tua last week. I don't remember exactly what his injury was or his prognosis for playing the Jets, but what's his name? Rodgers is going to be trying to gun for his, and then what's his name? Devontae Adams says he wants to catch it. So I'm suspecting that those 2 play, and if that happens, and then they just sail off into the sunset. So it just depends on what kind of injury really Tua has.
Yeah, that's a good point. He suffered the quarterback's hip injury. Yeah, good point. I'm not sure exactly how. They don't know. His week 18 status is up in the air. Obviously, like you said, they're playing the Jets. Probably going to be a win if he plays, but just like you were mentioning just now, how the Bengals, the Ravens, the Steelers, when they play each other, it's tough. It's a divisional game. Like these teams don't like each other. Even though the Jets got trounced yesterday, I mean, they did not like the Bills. If they were a better coach team and a better talented team, they would have had a shot yesterday just because it's a divisional game. But that's the only thing that worries me. I'm not too worried. I think the Bills are still a better team than the Dolphins. And I think they're spiraling down more than they're doing great. There's talks of Mike McDaniel potentially getting fired, or at least a GM getting fired after this season. We'll see. And then obviously you have the Bengals, and the Bengals have an awful defense. So that makes me happy. But at the same time, the Bengals offense seems to be healthy with T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. Those guys, I mean, they can just go tit for tat for points. I mean, it could be an LA Rams game all over again where the Bills make a couple of mistakes, and all of a sudden it goes from being a game that the Bills could easily win to, the Bills lost by 3 points, right?
So didn't I think I may have read something about the way, of course, obviously they match up all these divisional last games to try to make everybody play for something. for the fact that they played those two games, what is it, the AFC North division, or is it North or AFC
Yep.
North? The Browns play the Bengals the first game on Saturday. So if the Bengals beat the it's one of the. I know that there's one first. I can't remember exactly the scenario, but if in that game one thing happens, the second game of that in the evening doesn't even matter. I think that the NFL scheduled something ridiculous in that aspect, and I can't remember the specifics of it, but because I can't remember who's got the edge one way or the other. And I think it has to do with a tiebreaker or something. But I believe if one of those teams, I think the Browns are statistically out. So I think if the Ravens beat the Browns, then one of the two teams from the Bengals and Steelers game is automatically out. So that game already cancels it. Those two are playing for, it doesn't matter for whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't know all the scenarios off the top of my head. I have like all the seeding scenarios, but I guess are you looking, so Cincinnati gets in if the Jets win, KC wins, and Cincinnati wins, obviously. Oh, and if Baltimore wins as well. So they need Baltimore to win, they need Cincy to win. Vegas or the Chargers could go either way, honestly, depending on what happens with Denver and Miami.
So I think so. The scenario where it matters for that game is that if the in that first game, if the Ravens lose that first game, then something with the other, I think one of the other two teams in the Bengals and the Steelers are automatically out.
Okay, so I'm looking at the scenarios right now. If the Ravens lose, then the Bengals need the Chargers to lose, which makes sense. KC to win, which makes sense because that cancels out Denver, and then the Jets to win as well. Or they can do it the same way with the Chargers winning also, and the Jets still have to win. So the Dolphins can't win in any scenario. The Broncos can't win in any scenario. And then you just have to, they could do it depending on Baltimore or Cleveland. So there's a few different scenarios, but yeah.
I think that's one of those roll of the dice scenarios where you really never know what you're going to get. That's the literal any given Sunday motto thing.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to have to sit back. And then, which is good that even though the Bills are going to play the early game on Sunday at 1:00, though, as soon as they're done, they're just clock watching the rest of the evening, so to speak. And then they'll immediately know their opponent and then just game plan from there. And then I think that if depending on certain situations on that Saturday, they may already know their opponent.
Yeah, definitely, which is kind of nice. Just in general, it's nice to not have the first seed, but be able to mostly sit on Sunday.
I think the Bills are in a good situation where, yes, everyone wants, but in this situation where everything's so tight, that you do get a chance to play and not be sitting for, like in the Kansas City Chiefs scenario, they could essentially just be sitting their starters for 2 whole weeks. And then hopefully they don't run into a buzzsaw. Like hopefully, either us or whoever's it wouldn't be us the next round anyway. We wouldn't be playing Kansas City until
not until the championship game. Yep.
So the AFC championship, but you could potentially run into Joe Burrow with that offense running as good as they have, and Kansas City's kind of sputtering. So that's one of those things where you could run into some real problems.
So I think Kansas City is not sputtering as much as they were, and they kind of looked. I mean, they looked good against the Steelers, and I think it helped getting. Now I can't remember which wide receiver they just got back. Hollywood Brown, I think. They just got back. I think they're actually kind of hitting their stride right now, or they're starting to, I mean, for them this season, not to them in the past seasons before or last, but so it's the hot teams that scare me, I guess, more so, like the Bengals. It's unlikely the Bengals get in, but yeah. Real quick, Big Mike, before I let you go, do you have any Sweet Sassy Molassy plays of the game or Wall of Fame or Wall of Shame you want to share before we do those?
The Wall of Fame, the offensive line, keeping Josh upright. They had a couple of big plays where they opened the holes in the running game and just kept literally just kept doing what they've been doing. So I'm going to put them on the Wall of Fame. And I don't think anything for the Wall of Shame other than the refs just trying to put their nose in every aspect of the game. But I will be fair. I will say that it was, kind of even across the board. So, I'm not going to say that it was negative towards us. I think it was just that they were just trying to have the spotlight on them. And then I'm going to go with the jump ball with Josh Allen to Keon Coleman. I don't know if you go back and look at one of the other angles, he seriously got up there, which is his basketball background. So I'm going to go with that one just because the rookie needs to, he kind of redeemed himself. He had a couple of early drops, and then he came back and made that big play.
Yeah, I love that one too, Big Mike. Big Mike, as always, appreciate you coming on, man. Go Bills.
Yes, go Bills.
All right, that was Big Mike. I wanted to get to Whittle 2K here to add him or her as a speaker and talk about the Bills. What's going on, brother? Bottom left, turn that mic on.
Yeah. I wanted to go over the playoff scenarios.
Yes.
First and foremost, I would like to play the Bengals in round one and the wild card. That would be the ideal situation to me as a Bills fan. But the way this worked is the Bengals need to win out. They need Miami to lose, and they need
Denver to lose. Yep. Mm-hmm.
If Denver wins, they get in. If Denver loses and Miami wins, Miami gets in. And the Steelers are locked into, at worst, the 6th. They will not. There's no way the Steelers don't make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's where I'm at. I would like to see the Bengals.
Are you not worried? Are you not worried about the offense hitting its stride? Because they didn't look great against the Bengals, but the Bengals have a good defense, so it's kind of hard to take that all in. But I mean, Burrow, the Bengals defense is awful, so the Bills could take advantage of that. I guess I'm just worried on the flip side that offense can just turn it on when and if they want to.
Yeah, the Bills defense this year big on getting a bunch of stops. But they are big on does a good job in short yardage situations of getting run stuff. I think the red zone defense is pretty good. I know over the last few weeks it hasn't looked good because they've given up a ton of points to a bunch of different teams. But overall, I think the Bills defensively will do enough to get a couple of extra possessions. And when you have Josh Allen and this group of wide receivers, I think that complement each other very, very well. Or pass catchers. Let me not just say wide receivers, because I think Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid are very important, as well as the running backs, to what we do offensively. I think when you have a group like this, it's really about what matchup can you exploit and what matchup will the defense give you to exploit. I think going up against a defense like the Cincinnati Bengals, I don't see how the Bills don't score basically every time they touch the football.
Yeah.
And I think the Bills defense will be able to do that against the Cincinnati team. I mean, they played a lot more man this year than they play. And I think that's the key to slowing down the timing and the progression of the Bengals offense. And, I think defensively.
So we're where they stopped them in the first quarter. The Bills defense stopped the Jets on 4th and 1 at the Bills 24-yard line to get the ball back. The Bills had an interception by Jordan Phillips. Again, you mentioned defensive tackle. Jordan Phillips interception when the Jets were driving early in the game at the Bills 12-yard line, the one that was batted by Rousseau. I think this defense, maybe it's starting to hit its stride. They looked rough against the Patriots in the first half, but in the second half, they came together. I mean, they had a fumble return for a touchdown. They had several sacks, several takeaways. It's possible now that they're getting healthy, now with Rasul Douglas hopefully getting back to health, Taylor Rapp coming back, Christian Benford obviously is huge. All these guys coming back from injury, Matt Milano back. I think that this defense could hang with most teams. There's a couple of fluky games in there. You're talking about the Lions, who have a great offense. The Rams, I still consider that to be like the Murphy's Law of games for them. Just everything that could go wrong for them just seemed to go wrong. So kind of an outlier there. But yeah, I agree. The defensive tackles and how they fare, because when the Bills have lost in the playoffs, it has felt like the defensive tackles have really just not shown up. I'm thinking about 2 years ago when they lost to the Bengals, and the Bengals were missing 3 interior offensive linemen, and the Bills could not stop the run. They could not stop the run. They couldn't get pressure up the middle, issues like that. Whittle 2K, thank you so much for coming on, man. Is there anything else you want to add before I let you go?
Yeah, just wanted to also bring up when you talked about the health of the Bills defensively. I think that's an underrated piece to what the Bills can do defensively. You now have a situation where Matt Milano is not all pro Matt. He's not all pro Matt Milano yet, but you have a Matt Milano back, which now allows you with Dorian Williams to go into some 3 linebacker sets. You also will be getting DeMar Hamlin back and the extension of Cole Bishop in coverage. You now give yourself the opportunity to also go with 3 safeties if you want against teams that want to run the football a little bit, well, not a little bit, but teams that want to run the football. So if you're worried about, I really want to get a little bit bigger than the normal nickel that we play, but at the same time, I don't want to compromise the coverage as much as putting 3 linebackers out there. You could go with 3 safeties and match up against a Baltimore and have, 2 box safeties, and then you have your corners that can drop back into deep thirds with a safety back in the middle and a single high look. There's a ton of things that you can do. You can be very aggressive and still be able to, I think, match their pass catchers with guys that have the capability to stay with them and cover and make plays on the football. So, yeah, that's all I got. Thank you for bringing me up.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks again for coming. Go Bills. All right. That was Whittle 2K. He put in a Go Bills in there real quick. I missed it, but I hope you guys heard it. I got to add the man, Mookie Hawkins, into this space. Mookie, I haven't had a chance to actually talk to you in person, man. How are you doing? Not much. I loved your question to Aaron Rodgers about what season of his it reminded him of Josh Allen's season that he's having right now. That's a good question. Who, Jets fans or Bills fans? Loved it.
When you walk in the rooms, when you walk in these damn, the presses of the opposing team, 9 times out of 10 they lost. So they're not expecting a type of question like that. You know what I mean? I know Aaron Rodgers, but I didn't think I was going to get the first stab at it either. You know what I mean? But hey, it came like that. They like they didn't want to talk to him, or they were scared to shoot, so I shot.
Yeah.
It didn't have anything to do about getting your ass whipped. So that's why I know I kind of got that stare because he probably like, who the fuck is talking? Because when they go in there, when they know they about to go into a press conference and they fucking lost, they already got an attitude and shit. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, yeah. I want to say, though, you eased the tension, though, with that question. It wasn't like, what happened, Aaron? Why did you lose? I thought it was a good way to ease the tension because he was staring daggers at everyone, and then you were the first question. I'm like, uh-oh. But you did it. You did a good job.
Break the ice a little bit and it made it more easier, and everybody wasn't scared to ask him what they wanted to ask him after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are your thoughts? I mean, we were just going over the game. Obviously, you've done your recap of the game and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on the playoff scenario? Anything, the MVP conversation? What's on your mind?
You can talk about all of that stuff. This is my opinion. We already know that Josh Allen's the MVP. Everybody want to put stats in it now. They ain't put stats in it last year when Josh Allen's stats was much better than Lamar. It boils down to wins and things of that nature. This is where I kill the MVP race. Take away Zay Flowers, take away Rashad Bateman, take away Humphrey, and take away Hamilton. And see, will the Baltimore Ravens still have 11 wins?
Yep.
Josh Allen did it with no 2. He lost 2 All-Pro safeties. And he lost his number 1 and number 2. We're going to let you keep Derrick Henry, another Hall of Famer running back, by the way. We're going to let you keep him. Will you still be able to – you only won 11 games with what you got. So if 2 defensive guys, and basically the best 2 defensive guys, your 1 and 2 receivers, would y'all have 11 games right now? And that with both his 1 and 2 receivers, not on.
Yeah, and he didn't get a Derrick Henry, like you said.
And he ain't got a Derrick Henry. But James Cook was still on the roster. He had 1,000 yards year. But yeah, just when you got to because they got a stacked box.
Yep.
So, it's easy to, to play dots where your receivers are literally one-on-one 85% of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody's really talking about that. So that's why I say Josh Allen MVP by far is unanimous. Anytime you share records with guys that got leather helmets and shit on, what are we talking about? He's blowing dust off records.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing about Derrick Henry, too, I love your point about that. No one talks about that enough, is that, the Titans have had good records in the past with him as the running back and Ryan Tannehill as quarterback, right? They went 11-5, 2021. They've had good records where he's basically had to play the quarterback role because they've had a mediocre or subpar quarterback. So he can do that if he's playing and he's healthy. Like, he has the ability to do that. There's only a few running backs that can do that. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is one of those guys. Christian McCaffrey at times when he's healthy, but he's one of those guys. And like you said, the wide receivers. The thing that gets me, Mookie, I don't know if you saw that those stats about the separation that the wide receivers are getting for Baltimore compared to Buffalo. I know you mentioned the Bills lost Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, but I mean the Bills ranked bottom third to bottom of the NFL in receiver separation on targets. So, you look at Zay Flowers, Nelson Aguilar, who's the other one? Rashad Bateman. And they're constantly getting separation from the DBs that are covering them. So, there's a huge advantage that the Bills don't have. And Josh Allen's still making throws and still making passes and connecting with these guys.
Right, because you got to have all your eyes. First, your eyes got to be on Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. So by the time you figure it out, one of those three guys, Bateman, Aguilar, or Flowers, or Andrews, is wide open.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Florio had a good thing. I retweeted it, but he had a really good MVP race breakdown and his thoughts for Josh Allen. Now, here's a question, though. I agree with you. I think there's so much recency bias, though, in the net that they'll say, it's a shame that Josh Allen had these amazing games against the 49ers, the Lions, that it was a few weeks ago and not just last week. I think if he had those games yesterday, I think the conversation would be over. But I feel like there's still a little bit of wiggle room where he might not make it. And I think it's because Lamar Jackson's stats are so good. What do you think the odds are? I mean, I know you said you think he is, but part of me thinks that there's a little bit of a recency bias and the media is going to forget about Lamar Jackson losing those two games in the beginning of the season against teams that have 3 or 4 wins right now, the Raiders and the Browns. The national media forgets about those. We remember them, but
Josh Allen is winning the MVP. They can't keep saying until Josh wins an MVP, then he's considered in the realm of a Lamar Jackson or a Patrick Mahomes. They left the Bills for dead this year. The window was closed. You know what I mean? It was over. They was third in the AFC. There's no way. The Bills right now probably be the only 14 wins team that don't have a 1,000-yard receiver on the team once they win Sunday. I don't know if it's ever been a team that maybe 13, but I don't know about 14. Now, you got to check those stats. But, yeah, that's where I'm looking at that. It's definitely by committee. It's definitely by what Joe Brady's been mimicking. Everybody's eating. So the crazy part about it is the whole season in the past, I don't even think the team has gelled yet. That's kind of odd. Sometimes you forget they got Amari Cooper on the team until yesterday, right?
Yep.
So now when you watch film, what are you really watching? Because you don't know what the Bills are going to line up, come playoff time, or what matchup's going to be out there, what the personnel group is going to be out there. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be pretty insane to stop that, come playoff time, because you're not going to know what to expect from them.
So the Bills. Yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No. So the Bills are going into the playoffs now, probably the healthiest they've gone in a few seasons. They're just missing Damar Hamlin back on defense. Obviously, we don't know if he's going to start in the wild card. Hopefully he's healthy by then. I know he's a limited practice participant last week. So the Bills, besides Damar Hamlin, are going to be pretty healthy on defense. And on offense, they're still doing pretty well, minus Curtis Samuel, but they didn't seem to miss him too much he hasn't been really a factor this entire season. How big of a factor, in your opinion, is the health of this team going into the postseason? Because in my opinion, I think it was the difference between the Chiefs playoff game last year in Buffalo. I think the Bills, if they have either Terrell Bernard back or Christian Benford back or Matt Milano, or I think even Terrell Bernard was out that one. Like the Bills win that one. They only lost by 2 points. What are your thoughts on the Bills actually potentially being healthy for the first time going into the first round?
Well, I mean, that's what they wanted, right? They wanted to make sure they kept guys healthy as possible heading to the postseason, because the past couple of postseasons, they haven't been going into the postseason with their guys. And a lot of people, the Bills defense was getting a lot of flack a couple of weeks ago about they giving up points. Okay, but they out there they're missing 4 or 5 starters on defense. What do you expect to happen? You don't have your 2 safeties out there in your cornerback. Like, what do you expect to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, they lost 1 game, but they gave up 40 points per. So what? Big fucking deal. Like, when Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard and Rasul Douglas and all those guys out there, and see when you get 40 points. I doubt it very seriously. So even when the Bills lost to Baltimore, there's no Terrell Bernard or Matt Milano out there. Like, so
it's a big deal.
Yeah, so definitely big deal. And so, I mean, let's be realistic to what we're witnessing and what we're looking at and what we're watching. All right, Baltimore, y'all lost to 2 shitty-ass teams. The Bills lost to 3 playoff teams. With players they ain't even supposed to be. Bills supposed to be probably 3-13, along 13-3, where everybody was talking at the beginning of the season. So you can't tell me in the beginning of Baltimore season, if he didn't have Zay Flowers or Rashad Bateman, Hamilton, and Humphrey, that they will be having the Baltimore Ravens the favorite to come out of the North, let alone make the playoffs. But just those 4 people missing. You can't tell me that. So that's why I say Josh is the MVP, because he, I told people before the season, I said, don't matter. The Bills still got 17. I mean, they still got 17. That's the common denominator of everything. Like, okay, Stephon Diggs, the Bills won 7 straight games without Diggs being the factor, but Diggs was a factor because he kept 4 eyes on him all times. So that helped everybody else. And you see the big difference when Amari Cooper got here, because now those 4 eyes is back occupied somewhere else, rather than they were just playing man for man and just daring Josh to beat him. So now that's where the importance of having a number 1 wide receiver, because he poses a threat. No matter what, he's out there, he poses a threat. That's Amari fucking Cooper. You better have a safety back there already, because we saw what happens when you don't. You don't get head tapped out there. Play.
It felt like this year, you brought up Stephon Diggs, and I hate to rehash Stephon Diggs, but I got to ask this question for you, for someone that's actually in there, is that, Josh Allen comes in and he doesn't have his number 1 wide receiver. And for all intents and purposes, if Josh Allen still wanted Stephon Diggs on the roster, even though there were issues, like, he would still be here, right? There was obviously, I'm not saying that he's the reason why Diggs is not here, but he didn't keep him here, is my point. So now you take away his number 1 wide receiver. It felt like Josh Allen could have gone 2 directions. Well, I'm going to do what I always do, or I'm going to come out different than I've ever had to, because I have to put the team on my shoulders. I don't have another teammate to lean on, another all-pro, another veteran that's been here longer than I have, that knows the league better. Like, it comes down to me. And even in his off-season regimen, I mean, he's admitted before on other podcasts and interviews that he doesn't really eat really well in the offseason. He comes in, a few pounds heavier. This year, he did not come in that way, and it felt like it was business. Do you get that feeling from him at all this season? Is it just Josh being Josh? Or, I mean, I know he's taken it to another level, but did you ever get that feeling from it, even in preseason training camp, that he was headed on this trajectory?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you knew that. I mean, I can tell you this. Bills did one phenomenal job on developing a franchise quarterback. I mean, only thing I can say they probably almost fucked up at was naming Nathan Peterman the fucking starting quarterback when, Josh got drafted. Like, 9 times out of 10, sometimes that fuck up with somebody's psyche. Like, damn, I just lost a QB battle to a guy that just threw 6 picks in a quarter. Like, but again, Johnson mentally tough, coming from where he comes from. His whole makeup was just designed so perfect for Buffalo is just pathetic, you know. So, hey, he sat out junior college, so sitting behind Nathan Peterman waiting his turn didn't matter. You know what I mean? So it didn't affect his psyche at all. But when you look at how they nurtured him, how they started off bringing in a Cole Beasley and John Brown, because Josh had the strong arm, but he didn't have short term and intermediate accuracy coming out of college. He had the big strong guy in the cannon. He never had no short term and mid-term and intermediate accuracy. So you bring those two guys in. Josh passed that test. So now let's bring him a true diva number one wide receiver to really see if this guy has tough skin, and is he the guy that we drafted in the 7th round, in the 7th overall pick. Passed that test. So the Bills didn't want to. Stephon Diggs, you know, that wasn't the plan to get rid of Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs pretty much got rid of himself. You know, he wanted to leave. You know, and they didn't have, and him and Josh didn't have no personal shit between them. It's just business. You know, he just didn't want to be here. And they wasn't nobody plans to get rid of their number one and number two receiver, bro. Nobody ever plans that. The plan was to draft a wide receiver. He grew him under Diggs 1 year, and then, you know, whatever happens. But Houston just made an offer that he couldn't refuse. That's like I'm gonna get this guy for a late first round pick. I'm gonna get this guy for a late first round pick, and he's the best fucking receiver in a 4-year span with my quarterback, right? Another team comes around and say, hey, we're going to give you a 2nd round pick for this guy in X, Y, and Z. The Bills would have never got a 2nd round pick next year for Stephon Diggs. So you had to make that deal. You was not going to get a 2nd round pick. After this season, you wasn't getting a 2nd rounder for Stephon Diggs. Look what Amari Cooper went for. Look what who else got traded. Those dudes didn't get Keenan Allen and shit like that. They didn't get traded for anything. They got traded away basically for free. And we gonna get rid of Stephon Diggs, who was very productive with us, for a 2nd round pick. Oh yeah, we gotta go. You know, so I'm quite sure Bean had that talk with Josh and let him know what was going on and what was happening. See, Diggs knew that he was being traded. The talks had already began when he put up the infamous "Are you sure?" tweet.
Yep.
He knew he was gone already. He knew the trade was already in. You know what I mean? Yeah. Kind of coincident the next day he's gone, right?
Yeah.
So he already knew that this was happening. You know, so that's, you know, that was his last cryptic tweet, but I already knew that he was traded. So it wasn't nothing personal towards Josh. I'll say one hell of a run between the two. Yeah. It's just that, you know, Steph is a very opinionated, fiery guy. Receivers are diva. Well, he's a diva, but he was a hell of a locker room guy. He didn't have no locker room. Steph was a good guy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's just that he's opinionated. He tell you, hey, you ain't gonna like some guy will come out of his mouth. And he might be right. Like telling McDermott that this playbook ain't shit. You know? Yeah. You know, coach might back his guy because there's this guy from Carolina didn't like it. Coach got in his feelings. They came out and told the media that he wasn't there when he was there. Mm-hmm. So that lets you know that, you know, both parts got underneath each other's skin that day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
But why would you, on the same token, if your boss come out and throw you under the bus and lie and shit, would you want to work for him still?
No.
So you got to take all that stuff into consideration. So yeah, it wasn't nothing personal with Josh. It was the business of it. Was he right in certain areas? Yeah. Could he handle it a little bit more better? I mean, I guess he been as professional as he possibly could. He didn't slander or do anything. He just made cryptic tweets and shit, his usual stuff. And, you know, now you're gone. But shit, the Bills got their money back. Right. Yeah. That's like getting your money back. Like, I'd have spent a late first round pick for this guy, and 4 years later, I get my money back. Is Keon Coleman? What was that? 22nd, 10 picks. Okay. Yep. 10 pick difference. 4 years later, I get that back. I get my money back. Yeah. You know, so, you know, good move by the Bills. And, you know, Josh just evolved into another level of him. And then again, when you look at the makeup, right? At Wyoming, who in the fuck was his receivers at Wyoming? A bunch of nobodies. Oh, yeah. So, you know, it's the same setup, no let up, man. It's just on another level.
Those are all great points, Mookie. Real quick, I could talk to you for another hour easily. This has been fun. Real quick, is there a team that you think it would be better for the Bills to play against in a couple of weeks in the wild card round between the Bengals, the Dolphins?
Let the Bengals in, man. I'm tired of this shit. Just let the Bengals in so you can take care of family business all in one while. Take care of Burrow, Jackson, and Mahomes. So everybody can just shut the fuck up about who's better. You know what I mean? Let's just take care of family business. It's one time.
Yeah.
Let the Bengals ass in it. All right, let them in. Come on to Buffalo. We owe y'all anyway because last time y'all came here in the playoffs. So bring y'all asses back over here and let Josh be the MVP he is. And, so everybody can just shut up. National media can just shut up after that.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on, Mookie. I got to have you on separately just to interview you and you alone, man. This has been a pleasure. Appreciate it. Happy New Year. That was awesome. If you guys have ever heard Mookie, I love listening to him at press conferences. There are some media folks that are kind of like, it's kind of some fumble over their words for about a half an hour before they get a question out. Mookie is just a different animal. It's just so fun to listen to and appreciate him coming on, man. So there's been a lot of people that are waiting, want to get to you guys. If you want to talk anything Buffalo Bills related, having to do with anything going on, I got Go Winnipeg Jets on right now to talk Buffalo Bills. If you hit the lower left-hand corner for the Twitter space, you can turn your mic on. Go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I love Mookie. I love his points he was making. Really excited. I was in Whittle's space earlier today, and there was some good conversations about the playoffs coming up. I'm just excited about a lot of things. I'm excited about Josh Allen's maturation this year. Like you said, too, a couple points back, how healthy we are entering the playoffs. I think that's huge. Being able to rest guys against the Patriots here, that's big. And I think everything considered, I'm old enough to remember the Super Bowl years. And I think the 90 team was, that was probably the closest they ever got. The 13-second team was probably the second closest they ever got. I think if they would have held on there, I think they would have won the world championship. And I think this is another moment, we got to meet. I think we're going to be able, some people disagree. I actually think we're going to be on a mission these first two playoff games, and it's going to be awesome. I don't think the games are going to be close. I think this offensive coordinator, the way Josh Allen is playing, I just don't see anyone stopping them. The Bengals, the Ravens, the Chargers, just whoever it is. I think it's going to be ugly, and whoever those two teams are in the first two rounds are going to get blown out really, really bad. And I think we can go to Arrowhead. I'm optimistic, but I also do think the Chiefs are a great football team. They haven't won back-to-back Super Bowls for no reason. It's not luck. Their quarterback is unbelievable. I do think we're slightly better than them this year. So we'll see what happens. But it is an Arrowhead. We are going to need, I think in that game, the defense is not going to have to be great, but they're going to have to be better. But I am optimistic that with a healthy Von Miller, playoff Von, and a more mature Rousseau and Oliver, I think we'll squeak out that win. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think I hate to think that far ahead, but I like where the conversation's going. I agree with everything you're saying. I say the Bills win that game as long as coaching doesn't get in the way like it had for the 13 seconds game. As long as there's no major injuries to major players between now and then, and coaching doesn't get in the way, because I think that's probably their biggest hurdle. Because I don't know if you feel the same way. So just when you were talking about it, this feels like a different team than it has been going into the playoffs. They just seem more confident, if that makes sense. Going into it, they just feel like they're much more in control of their destiny, as opposed to let's just hope we win a few games and get through. You know what I mean? The psyche of the team.
I think confidence is part of it. You got to remember too, this team with some of the players and Allen and the staff and Deion Dawkins and Dawson Knox. I mean, we've been in a lot of playoff wars. They've been in a lot of big games. So the moment's not going to be too big for them. But I think the biggest difference with this team, I think there's just so much. They can beat you in so many different ways, and they can run the ball now way more better. They can dominate the line of scrimmage way more better, and they have so much more balance. So I feel like if they do have a lead in one of these big games in the playoffs, this running game is going to help them close it out, calm the game down. things of that nature. I am a little bit, I think anyone would be a little bit naive about Sean McDermott's past playoff issues on defense. And I don't think it's a concern. I just think that being through the past playoff games before and going and being through it going through it already, he'll be better at it. And I think that Greg Rousseau, if we can get a lead in Arrowhead, and like you said, I know it's a little bit ahead, but if we can get a lead in Arrowhead late in the third, early in the fourth, and Greg Rousseau and Von Miller and Ed Oliver can tee off, I don't know if the Chiefs have the tackle talent at tackle to stop us. I just don't. I don't think it would. I don't think they would win those matchups. And I think one area too, and I'll leave you with this. I think the Chiefs' defense is still really good. Obviously, Chris Jones is one of the all-time greats. One of the big reasons why Kansas City won a championship last year is their cornerback play was incredible. It was outstanding. And losing L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie, now he's playing outside. He's outstanding. I just don't know. I think Shamari Connor is their nickel corner now, who's a good player. But I think Joshua Williams, and they lost Jalen Watson, who was a starter, and Joshua Williams has replaced him. But their cornerback play it's not what it was last year. And so I think those two issues, I think it will be close. Patrick Mahomes, I'm not going to doubt his greatness. I think we're gonna win this time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love all those points, man. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Thanks for talking Bills with us. Appreciate it, man. Go Bills. Right, that was Go Winnipeg Jets talking on it. It's funny. I do hate to get ahead of myself because one game at a time, like they always say, go 1-0. Bills always say that, go 1-0. Joe Brady always tweets 1-0 when the Bills win one. But at the same time, the way that Moogie's talking, the way that he's talking, go Winnipeg Jets, it's hard not to get excited about that and feel confident. Like I said, I'm one of those people who's, conservative. I don't like to overbet too much. Like I won't bet my life savings on the Bills winning this weekend, anything like that. Like I'm that type of guy, risk averse in some aspects. Right. So I look at that game but everything he said makes sense. The Bills having a chance to close out against the Kansas City Chiefs is definitely doable, even in Arrowhead, as long as coaching doesn't get in the way, as long as injuries don't get in the way. And not for nothing, when we were just talking just now, one thing that absolutely came to mind is the officiating. As long as officiating doesn't get in the way and throw some bogus penalty flags, I think we're good. And you could argue that, that game against the Chiefs last season, where Mahomes, they had that amazing pass to, what was it, Kadarius Toney that he ended, or Travis Kelce ended up lateraling it to Kadarius Toney or whoever. Amazing play. That's probably NFL highlight reel play for the next 30 years. And all because someone didn't line up on the wrong sides. It actually went the Bills' way for once. So, hey, maybe this is a trend. Maybe things will fall into place. Another thing that I keep harping on season after season, it feels like one thing that you just cannot control. You can't control injuries, clearly. You can't control officiating. But another factor that you just can't control when it comes to the playoffs is luck. Luck is a factor. Getting to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl, whether it's in the form of injuries, whether it's in the form of officiating, whether it's in the form of the ball bouncing the wrong way, whether it's in the form of your very steady, sure-handed long snapper getting bowled over by a guy and the punt getting blocked and returned for a touchdown all of a sudden. Things like that don't normally happen, that don't go your way. There is a factor of luck. And if the Bills find that factor, as long as they don't have it against them, like I think they did in the Rams game just recently, I think they win. So again, feeling confident. It feels weird, doesn't it? I'm with the last speaker. I've been a Bills fan since the Super Bowls. I was a kid watching them. Some of my first memories are watching Bills games with my family. So I've seen it all. And I know that feeling confident actually feels weird as a Bills fan. It feels weird to feel confident or to be, that to have that kind of thought that your team could beat in succession Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes in that order. Like Mookie said, man, bring it on. Like when he said that just now, I didn't say, whoa, what are you saying, Mookie? I couldn't disagree with him. In fact, I was leaning into it. I'm like, yeah, bring him on, man. Let's do this. It felt like a WWF fight. We're going to go through Burrow. We're going to go through Lamar. We're going to go through Patrick Mahomes. And then we're going to go through Jared Goff again in the Super Bowl. Like, it just, I'm all for it, man. This is a good time to be a Bills fan. Let's try to appreciate or at least enjoy the hell out of it while we can. I want to talk again with you guys next week. Appreciate you guys all being part of this Twitter space, our podcast. If you haven't heard our podcast, we are on every podcast service, Circling the Wagons. Search us there. We're going to go over the game next week as well. And I'm sure we're going to talk to more people before the playoffs to preview the playoffs, to get into that mindset, because it's an exciting time of year, man. It's an exciting time of year. Thank you guys all for being a part of this. Thank you guys all for listening, for watching. I appreciate you all. And for me, Nate, go Bills. And we'll talk to you guys all again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Circling the Wagons podcast. Download and subscribe to us in your favorite podcast service. Email us at ctwpod@gmail.com. That's Charlie Tango Whiskey Pod@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at CTWPod. And most importantly, go Bills!
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, Nate.
Well, listen, the whole show is called Circling the Wagons. Say no more. I love it.